Hi, everyone, and welcome to December's virtual watch party. We're ending Alexa, alarm off. Welcome to our December watch party, and we have such special guests today. We have the winner of the grand prize, Tristan Ortiz, and his subject, Justine Francisco. Welcome. And unfortunately, Betty Sue couldn't join us. Betty Sue actually won the student award and the second prize, but her subject, Gaby West, is here. Hi, Gaby.
Hi.
Oh, I think we'll go with you first. Gaby, you were sort of a late addition. Why don't you tell everyone how you got to the MYgration films?
I got a call from a friend who had spoken to you, and I honestly did not know what on earth I was signing up for, to be quite honest with you. But I said yes, and I was in the middle of a house move. And so you and I talked, and you told me, well, actually, the filming has to happen this weekend. And I said, okay, I'm supposed to be moving house this weekend. Um, so I made some adjustments in my life and met with Betty, and we filmed all weekends, and she was amazing to work with, and her whole team were. So it was a whole team that came out, and yeah, it was loads of fun. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this kind of storytelling, this weaving of storytelling about people's lives and people who've migrated here. And I think they're important stories. So thank you.
Thank you, because you literally like upended your life for that weekend to get the filming done, and you were a last minute addition, and I was just so blown away by that. And your story just came out so well, and I love your mission to spread art into common places where you wouldn't normally think you'd find it. There's actually a deli in Brooklyn that has like original Ertes, Fazinos. I mean, like all this like major artwork. And it's just so wonderful to go to a deli and be surrounded by really significant art. So I
Yeah.
love that mission. I love that like the Transformers in town are all painted with different artwork now. It's just really our town, and I really think we have Terry Olson to thank for this, who couldn't make it tonight, but he has really spread the word of art in Orange County for the last 30 years, and I've been here 34 years and have really seen it grow. And it was just great also meeting Betty Sue, and you guys just really seem to make a great team. And I think that's what's so wonderful about these films is that you guys, sometimes like last year, I had a filmmaker who got the person who recommended them to do the contest as their subject. But in a situation like this, where Betty Sue is Asian and you're um, from England and Italy, and you guys just had a common goal that weekend and got her done, so to speak. And now we have Terry Elson. Hi, Terry.
Hello.
You see, he's everywhere, everything, all at once. We were just talking to Gaby. Betty Sue is on a road trip and couldn't make it, but I was just telling Gaby how much I loved her film, and I loved her personal mission of spreading art in common places, and that you, Terry Olson, have a lot to do with that here in Orlando. Could you speak to some of that, Terry?
Sure. I mean, art adds spice to life, and who doesn't like a spicy life?
Right.
So, yeah, that's been my profession, my passion, and my pleasure for many years, and I've been blessed.
Yes, indeed. Leo, are we ready to show Gaby's film, Anglo-Italian?
Everybody has a voice, everybody has something to say, and everybody has a unique way of being within the world. And that creates an incredible world to be in. We weren't here to be kind of cookie cutter versions of somebody else. My name's Gabriella West. I own a company called Artscape. where I do art and wine exhibits all over Central Florida in unusual spaces. So I identify as a multicultural being. My mother was English, my father's Italian. I actually grew up in Italy until I was 7 years old. I lived on the Amalfi Coast as well as Milan. And when I was 7, my parents got divorced and we moved to London, which is where my mother was originally from. And I lived there and I studied there. I went to one of the top art colleges in London. And then 27 years ago, I actually moved to Central Florida, to Orlando. So I married an American, and that's how I ended up in Central Florida. So my now ex-husband and I, when we were living in London, and when we decided to move, we actually sold everything and we bought round-the-world tickets, and we backpacked all over the world. We went throughout Asia and Australia and the Fiji Islands. We traveled for about a year and moved to Central Florida. When we got here, all we owned was what we had in our backpacks. And we went on to create a very successful business empire together. So I believe that our heritage shapes who we go on to become. A lot of our beliefs are formulated from a really early age. And a lot of that is to do with our heritage, what we're learning from our elders, from our parents, from the people around us, and whatever we're being exposed to in terms of the ideas. I had 2 very different backgrounds. So in Italy, people tend to be very expressive. They have very close family ties. And in England, where I moved to London, it's very multicultural. So I was exposed to lots of different cultures, which was wonderful. But people in England tend to be less expressive. They're far more reserved. And so I was learning these 2 very polar opposites of being, which was quite an interesting thing to experience. So it is a culture shock moving from one culture to the other. In fact, I couldn't speak English when I moved to England from Italy. I truly believe that we're all unique individuals and that we should be nurturing one another's uniqueness and the ability to be able to express that freely. So I think a lot of culture is really about the food. So the essence of a culture is captured within the food. So the way that I like to celebrate my heritage is really through food. We eat a lot of Italian food. My English culture, so basically I celebrate Christmas in the traditional Christmas way. The food that we eat at Christmas is a little bit different from the American traditional Christmas meal. So it is celebrated in the English way. We have roast potatoes instead of mashed potatoes. We have roast parsnips, and we have Yorkshire pudding, and we have different desserts as well. So as far as the Italian ones, really, it's connected to my work and art because of the exposure to art in Italy and the fact that my father is an artist as well. So I was exposed to art from a really early age. That's very much celebrated within my home and within my work. I think it's changed a lot in the 27 years that I've been here. I think now it's much more culturally diverse, which I love. It's really become a big melting pot. And I think that's really important because we can each share different ideas from different backgrounds, and that makes our whole life experience much richer.
So, Gaby, how do you find, 1, the artists, and 2, where you're going to put their art? Like, how do you pair that together?
So I work with a number of different venues here in Central Florida. Anything from historic homes to cafes, restaurants, And the artists, I put out call to arts whenever I have a new show that I'm putting together. Over the years, I've managed to build relationships with hundreds of artists here throughout Central Florida. So yeah, it's up to the artist to kind of submit artwork, and then I sit down with the venue owners and we sit down, we look at different themes for different shows. And that way it keeps their venues nice and fresh. It's constantly changing. It gives it a whole new look and feel every time we put together a new show. Yeah, so I've been doing it for a few years, so I've kind of built the connections and the community. And I think that's really important as well. When I first started doing this, it was mainly because I noticed that we had such incredibly talented artists, but there were very few spaces for them to be able to show their works. And so approaching different venues and inviting them to open that up to artists was really a great way of getting the artwork out there. And it's over the years, I've managed to build a community of artists. So often my openings, it's a way of the artists being able to connect with one another and to formulate that level of community, which has also been a really important part of the work that I do.
And do you do art that you exhibit as well of your own?
I don't. No, I always consider my artwork the actual shows themselves. So I curate the shows, and that in itself is a piece of artwork. So I kind of do on some levels, maybe a level that most people wouldn't really understand. But I did study sculpture and installation. And installation pieces are very much about taking the space and actually using the space as a way of kind of communicating a theme or a story. And so that's my artwork, is the show.
And when you left Italy at age 6 or 7, whatever it was, did you know you were going to be involved in the art world?
I did. That's a great question. I did, and I can tell you why. Because I couldn't speak English, I probably spent about a year where I wasn't really able to communicate with people. But one thing that was really clear to me, and I'll never forget this, I remember going to an art exhibit at the Royal College of Art. I remember, I think it was my mother had taken us to Hyde Park, and the Royal College of Art was right there, and they were having an exhibit. And I remember walking in, and I understood the language of the pieces of art. Those were speaking to me, and it was a language that I could understand. So yeah.
That's beautiful. That really is. I love that. Because art's, there's no language barrier,
Exactly. It's using symbols. It's using visual kind of references to symbology. And actually, that's how we learn as humans, is through symbols. It's through imagery. So I believe art's really, really important. It's a beautiful way to communicate ideas and emotions. And yeah.
Well, it's interesting because Harry Cohn, who ran Columbia Studios, he was a very crass and rough kind of guy. And he was talking with Garson Kanin, a writer, and he told Garson that he was going to the ballet. And Garson was a little taken that this ruffian would, go to the ballet. And he said, when I moved here, I didn't speak English and I could understand the ballet, so music, art, film, especially silent film, transcends all languages, and I think that's what I love the most about the art world.
I'm interested to know about how universal things are. Like, for instance, different colors in different cultures. We wear white for weddings, whereas I think yellow is the color in Japan, perhaps. We have black for mourning. I don't know that that's universal. So I'm interested to know, and I don't know that you know, but how universal. Certainly there are cross-cultural implications and understandings, but there must be other areas that of language that are different from different cultures. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, it was interesting. At Fusion Fest, I was invited to do a talk relating, obviously, to the film. And the topic that I picked was really about how our early formative years, and obviously the culture that we've been exposed to in those early formative years, how that relates to how we formulate and understand the world around us. And you're absolutely right. Within different cultures, if you look at what's considered beautiful in one culture, say for women, perhaps wearing high heels is considered beautiful in the Western world. In other cultures, it's not. You know, perhaps red lipstick is considered beautiful in one culture, or having your hair a certain way, whereas in other cultures, it's not. It's something completely different. So the culture that we're exposed to does kind of teach us a lot of the things that go on to inform how we actually view the world later in life. And I think that on a lot of levels, the way that that relates to art is that art not only looks at those symbols that we're all kind of accustomed to, programmed into, but it also tries to break those barriers as well. So it can push your own ideas and your whole reality and on a whole new level, using that same symbology, but in a different way. So.
And that's, you know, again, I always say, for me, the definition of art is anything that makes you feel something, whether it be anger, love, whatever, you know, indifference, you know, and it's just such, for me, a guttural thing, you know, like you just have like a response to an image, and like you said, who you are as a person and what you, the culture you've grown up totally informs how you will react to something, you know. So
also where you place values. So part of my story is I grew up in Italy, where I was surrounded by art. So
right.
when I came here to Central Florida over 20 years ago, it was really evident that there was no art, you know. So I kind of questioned, well, how are people kind of being informed, you know? How are people able to express different ideas without that? So, yeah.
All right. Well, we have Justine, who's
Wait, I have one more question. I know a day of filming is rough work, and we saw you drinking how many glasses of wine during that?
You know, I saw that, I was thinking, God, it looks as if all I do is drink wine all day. I know. I almost called Betty and said, can you cut, like, maybe put some of the other scenes in that we filmed? Because there was a lot of wine drinking. I don't think I actually even drank an entire glass on that filming. They were all like little sample sips that I got, because it was quite early on in the day when we were doing that. But yeah.
What did your friends think of being part of it?
What did my what?
Your friends think of being part of it?
Oh, they loved it. Yeah.
They loved
it. Yeah. And they loved the crew. The crew were just amazing. And Betty and everybody joined us for the meal. So I know they filmed some of it, but then I invited them all to come and eat. So it was really lovely. We had a lovely evening. Yeah, they were all great.
Super.
All right. Well, our next film is See Me As They Do. And I'm going to be 100% honest. When I first was doing my interview with Justin, I remember almost bullying him. I was like, so what's your story? Right? I was like, you need a story. How are we going to tell us? We need to figure out what your story is. And much to my pleasure and surprise, he got matched with Tristan, who is a second-time Fusion Fest filmmaker with us. And I swear to God, they look like they could be cousins. Tell me about your experience, Justin. What did you think you had a story? What did you think it was going to be? And did it turn out to be what you thought?
Yeah, like as you said, I was having a hard time, definitely, and I think overall my personality, my life, and everything is very chaotic, and it's not as organized as in a narrative way. So it was definitely hard to pinpoint what the narrative under that 5 minutes, right? What my narrative want to show, because there's so much that I'm involved with. There's so much I want, a subject that I care, or a lot of things that I want to talk about in regards to my life and things that I'm interested in. But at the same time, it's how can you focus that? So I almost felt sorry for the person who picked me, the filmmaker to pick me, because I'm just kind of like blah 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 blah, here, bunch of different story, like with multiple personalities, right? And so it's really hard to really pinpoint like how do I want to tell my story. And I don't know, it was really hard to first, I think, first when I started this application, is my story even worth telling? And I think it's a lot of hardship in regards to whether there's value to hear my perspective. As English as a second language, we've kind of been taught, where your most of the time your opinion doesn't matter, or in high school, in group works, in colleges, where your ideas or your contribution to the discussion is more like a second thought. So I think that's the first step that I needed to get over, like just kind of realizing like no, there's like word in telling my story. So I actually had a hard time writing the application because I didn't really know how to, as you saw, it was very chaotic and not as organized as it should be. And then eventually, the day of meeting the filmmaker, Tristan, I met you and I just felt so sorry. I'm like, like Lord, like you did, he was trying to ask him, engage, really trying to, pinpoint like how do you want this narrative to go. And I'm just like, well, there's this, there's that. And I'm just so fortunate enough that I have two visionaries that really became a compass. They steered the story that I never expected it the way it was. I didn't know how it's gonna turn out, and it turned out amazing. So, despite the chaos, they were able to find a team and like a vision and a direction to my narrative, which I'm so happy. And yeah, I was speechless.
I like that imagery that documents your filming is creating order out of chaos.
Yes.
I think that's true. Maybe it's some and deeper in some cases than others, but I think that's part of it.
Mhm.
So Tristan, what was your impression when you first met Justine?
Oh Lord, no, I'm kidding. No. Reading his story, yeah, when Gage and I read his bio on the paper, we read it over and over and over again. We're like, okay, what angle are we going to take this at? Because there's a lot happening, right? And there's a lot going on. And what do we focus on? What angle can we take it at? But the thing that Gage and I talked about was that, what is the real story? There is, of course, the immigration story that everybody talks about, that we know everybody's going to have within this event. But what is his actual story? What connects everything in his life? And when we read about the relationship he had with his mother, we thought, well, this, at least to us as selfish filmmakers, we thought, well, this is, I think, is a guiding light to how he, Justin, how you live your life today. Whatever, all the stuff that you went through in the Philippines and Japan, coming over to the States and living your life, whether you're conscious of it or not, those stuff that you went through in your early life pinpoints to what you do today. And when we realized that there was a narrative thread there, we were very, we treated it very carefully with the subject. We're like, how do you want to talk to you? Do you even want to talk to your mom? Is that okay? We knew, I always said to Justin, I'm not going to push you off a bridge. You're not willing to jump off yourself. So if you want to go in that direction, as a selfish filmmaker, I want to go that direction. I want to see the actual story thread there. But it's all up to you. And when he said that, okay, my mother's willing to talk, we were like, of course, overjoyed. And he kind of gave us a curveball the day we were filming, because we were planning on filming him and his mom the second day, and then he was all like, "Hey, by the way, guys, my mom's available like right now." We're like, "Oh, okay." Like, all right, give us like 20 minutes to set up all the lights. And no, we dived right into it, and once we realized that connection was the actual heart of the film, and by extension, the heart of his story, of his life. Everything else just kind of fell into place coming from that.
Well, you definitely created some, I call them Barbara Walters moments, where you make your subject cry. But I'm sure our audience is super intrigued by everything you guys have said. So, Leo, can we roll it on See Me As They Do?
When we left Japan, my mom, she has this great opportunity to go to the United States. The immigration process here in the United States is not easy, and it takes years. So at a very young age, I basically was raised by my grandma in the Philippines. And with that, I didn't really have like a childhood with her. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Justin. Definitely, when I came here, I was up against everything. I knew what I wanted to give you, and I will work really hard for that. I left you with your grandmother. For every parent, that's really hard.
Most of my childhood experience growing up with my grandma, I kind of strongly identify more in my Filipino side. It kind of became my guiding way of growing up and how I go about my life, my point of view. I left when I was about 12 or 14. Now I'm in 8th grade. I'm trying to readjust my life because I just left everybody I know in the Philippines and also navigate that cultural difference. I'm really rediscovering who I am and what's my identity. And so I struggled a lot with that. I know what it's like to feel underrepresented. I know what it's like to lose my identity. My job is International Student Coordinator. I'm here to really provide student life and activities for our international students. To ease that transition, to really make them feel like they belong in this school.
I came out of a very rapid change in my life. Justin was from a part of me that I didn't really understand. He was putting his own feet in the shoes of international students, into people that are in a new situation, that are trying to figure out life here, and it seems like it was through experience.
That relationship between teacher and as student kind of got blurred where it becomes family. Like you all are family. Oh my God, I'm crying. Everybody in the international community is my family. It makes everything worthwhile. All the sleepless nights, all the times working beyond the allotted hours, it makes it all worth it.
It was very hard, blood and tears all the time, doing it by yourself, but not giving up, because one day it will worth it.
What my mom had to do and the sacrifice that she made, and I think sometimes I'm not paying her back. I'm able to live a life that she wanted. I feel like my mom doesn't have that opportunity. Even though I preach happiness, I preach positivity, if you pry it open, there's a lot of hurt, a lot of guilt. I ask her point blank, are you proud of me? Am I setting the example that you expected? And she said yes, which that's such a huge relief.
Life is not fair. No matter what happened, you still know that I'm here. I'm your mom. Don't cry, Devo. You are so good now where you are. You have to be proud.
For anybody who really feels isolated or they're in this struggle of in between worlds, I think my best advice is to really to seek out, to continue to find ways to rediscover yourself, to connect with people. Our Orlando community is such a vibrant, diverse city. Family can be forged through your connection. So you can do it. Don't give up. Be resilient. Shine like a diamond.
Such a great film.
Oh my.
So
I get
just
emotional every time.
it's very emotional. But Justin, how did your own experience create the person you become working in the ISS International Student Services Department at Wholesale? You know, what makes you sort of uniquely qualified to do that job?
I think, without even realizing it, Kyle pointed it out. And I love Tristan was able to capture that moment because I didn't even realize it. All I know is I'm using my instinct as, as an immigrant, my journey and how I knew what it felt like to be isolated and, to give up everything for your dreams. And I feel like a lot of international student, in Full Sail, I connect so well because I'm able to identify those different experiences and really empathize them in another level. So yeah, I was just working on my instinct and me just like not even realizing it, like I was able to forge friendship and really connect with them, especially in the holidays. We have a handful of students, international students, who won't be able to go home for the holidays, and to me that breaks my heart because holidays is for the family to celebrate that. And so I'm doing my best to really let them know that we're putting out programs even though the school is closed. We're giving them opportunity to really have like a social get together and really without your family we're still here as your social and your family to comfort you during these holidays so that you don't feel alone and isolated. And so again, it's just that personal experience of me, my childhood, me growing up here in the Philippines, in America, really drive my instinct to really care and to do my best to go above and beyond and to another level to really provide a sense of home, at least to do my best to provide them with a sense of home so that they don't feel isolated and that culture shock is not as intense when they come here. So,
But
so
you're
yeah.
not getting to go home either.
No, I'm not this year. But thankfully I do have some friends and family. I want to call them, family forged through relationship and connection that I'm able to um spend time with, but it's definitely hard not being able to go back home to Seattle, with my mom and my little siblings and my family back there. But we have Skype. I'm thankful for Skype and Zoom for making connection via internet easier, but it's definitely hard. And I think again through that, misconnect because Christmas is so big in the Philippines, and so not being able to spend that with family is very very hard. Um, so yeah, I definitely use that experience.
Justin, Tristan expressed that he was very respectful and although wanting to pull out emotion and whatever from you, uh, not pushing or pulling. That's his perspective. On
Yeah.
your end, how did it feel?
Um,
And why were you willing to let him bring that out of you?
Be honest. Be
yeah.
honest. It's okay. I
I
can take
mean,
it.
honestly, Tristan knew, like, I wasn't saying no, but at the same time, I was like kindly steering him away from it because, kind of bringing up different suggestion. In Asian culture, it's really hard to talk about the elephant in the room. It's just kind of like it's a very collectivist. I majored in communication, and one of the things we studied is individualistic culture, which is Western culture, and then you have collectivist culture, which you kind of see in South America, especially in Asia, where you kind of focus more on the harmony, the harmony within the family, so you don't bring up the elephant in the room, which will create discord in the relationship and the harmony in the family. So that's kind of like the sense that I grew up with. So it was very hard to really bring up sensitive topic in my perspective, and so that's why I had that natural instinct to really like it's really hard for me to talk about that to when I say that, I'm talking about when we talk about immigration, the story of immigration and traveling, we don't really mention the cost and the impact it has. And one of the things that I kind of talked about is that separation, right? You have a culture that celebrates family, and family is the main core and foundation, but due to economic struggles and to end that cycle of poverty, you have families kind of forced to leave their child behind, to seek opportunity abroad. And now you have a cycle of almost, I don't want to say dysfunctional family, but a generation of family where they didn't experience a stable mom and dad in a household, and you know just kind of like that impact, right? And so you have like this emotional kind of baggage that I don't want to say just my mom, but also me, I don't want to talk about it. And because we want to focus on the happy times, we want to focus on now, but we neglect the fact that there is still traumas and childhood traumas that are still impacting me personally today, and that I'm not even realizing it. But I think I'm so thankful for this project because I always talk about it, I always mention it, that it kind of began that closure, or it began that conversation of like, yes, I'm thankful to be here, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Because if I weren't here, I would have not been able to graduate college or given the opportunities that I have now. But at the same time, let us sit down and kind of talk about the traumas and the that separation, right, and how that impact us, so that we can have closure. And I think with that, it kind of, I feel like it brought my relationship with my mom a lot closer, because I feel like there's a lot of like, I want to say, I'm not a psychologist, but there's like unconscious resentment almost. But I think being able to really sit down and just like, okay, let's start that conversation, it kind of begin that journey of healing and journey of just kind of like having a better relationship with her. Sorry, that was a very long answer. I don't know where it was going, but yes.
That wow, I didn't realize it affected you in that kind of way. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
So in this process, you're kind of saying the West won over the hesitancy of the Eastern way of dealing with things. Have you, since this film, found yourself more open to talking about elephants in the room than you were before?
I think yes, definitely. I think one thing about vulnerability and being able to, because when you're talking about elephant in the room, is also sometimes it's about bringing up vulnerability and things that makes you vulnerable. So I think it actually, um instead of seeing it as a negative way, it kind of humanizes my story, and it kind of creates more opportunity of building relationship with others, because they see me as, they see my story, and they see me as more, not more than, but like, they see me as, they see my story, and they kind of get to know me more, and instead of that like barrier. So I think there has been a lot of positive impact, and definitely changing my perspective in regards to reaching out, and how can, there are a lot of things that it's hard to talk about, but to improve, to progress, it's something that you need to bring up, as long as there's empathy and there's love within that discussion. Bringing up those uncomfortability makes it better, I think. So yeah.
And I think when you're out on your own like that, I know I moved around and was away from my family since I was 20 and went away to college, and I didn't live in a dorm. So I stayed there for holidays, and I call them family of the heart, and I mean, I'm still friends with people that I went to college with and knew in California, and I'm still friends with the people I grew up with, so I think when you become sort of a citizen of the world, whether that means just moving across the country or across, from one country to the other, that learning how to accept other people, and bring them into your life and into your heart and open up, I think, I have so many people that I consider family of the heart, and it's really, it's makes for a much richer life, I think,
Gaby, go ahead.
No, Tristan, what's your background? Where are you from? What's your heritage?
Yeah, so my ethnicity is Puerto Rican on both sides. Both my mom and my dad are fully Puerto Rican, and but I was born in New York, raised here in Orlando. So I'm a Floridian through and through at this point. And even with days like today, I was like freezing. But no, Puerto Rican. I don't speak Spanish fluently. I can have small conversations here and there, just simply because I grew up here in the States and I didn't need it as much as somewhere else. Yeah, that's my personal.
I'm still musing on this East-West vulnerable closed, and thinking about Gaby, how it's kind of the opposite. England is the more reserved. You don't that heritage does. You don't talk about those things. Whereas Italian, you talk about it all and get it out. So it's like, is that true?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, so there was lots to learn when I first arrived in England, because the culture's so different. Learning not to express myself was a whole new teaching, right? But it's interesting
and I suppose there is time for that. I mean, that is a skill as well.
It is, but it's kind of taken to the extreme. The English version is the extreme version of that. So not being able to express yourself can actually cause more problems than perhaps overly expressing yourself. But it's interesting how your film really touched on, often what's overlooked in migrations, because I've done it several times in my life, not just obviously moving here, but also moving when I was a child, that you don't take into account, especially for children, the impact that has on your life, because you do lose connections. And as a child, those early kind of formative connections are so important, and not being able to have that, as well as being thrown into a different culture, as you were from Japan to the Philippines. It's really hard. And I think most people don't understand what an impact that really has in terms of trauma later on in life, and how that kind of plays out later on in life.
Yeah, Justin had, when we were talking, one of the things I connected with when I first met him was that he was saying that because he was born in Japan, kind of grew up, had childhood in the Philippines, and has kind of like this other life now in the United States, he is kind of, he even says it in the film, he kind of is in this state of between worlds, right? Yeah. That, the Filipinos see him as two Americans, and the Americans see him as two Filipino, kind of like similar to the Latin culture where, one side sees you as too much of the other side. And they're kind of in this awkward middle. And that's kind of where the title, See Me As They Do, kind of derives from, because I said to him, you told me that one set of people see you one way, another set of people see you the other way, but the part that really matters, the group of people who really matters or should matter to you, are this third group that we never really talk about, is the people who love you. And I want people to see him as they do, as the people who love him.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very vague. You can't really get that from the film, but
I was going to ask you, where did that come from? But thank you. I love that. I love that so much.
No, definitely that was such a beautiful way of. I think that's why it made me so emotional because I didn't even realize it until the film was made, and I think it definitely kind of bridged that gap. That it kind of made me feel okay with not really letting people define who I need to be or who I should be. I think in my interview with you, Tristan, I kind of my goal or my solution to my situation was to take over an undiscovered island in the Pacific Ocean and name it my island, and that's where I'm gonna be truly belong. But I think I'm glad that we didn't have to resort to that to that extreme. And like you said, what matters is how people who cares about you and cherish you, how they see you, and
Yeah.
kind of portraying that, and being able to have the freedom to really I'm talking about my identity, right? Having the freedom to really express how you want to culturally identify, for people being triple worlds. I can't just say both worlds because Japan, Philippines, and America. And I think Florida too. Florida is very different
It's a whole
from
nother world of its
Seattle.
own.
From Seattle. So
And
there's
there
How
are
long were
several
you
worlds in Florida. There are several worlds as well.
Yeah.
like
How long
Orlando, Miami.
how long did you live in Seattle before you moved to
Oh,
Florida?
oh my goodness. I want to say I spent most of my time in Seattle. So I've been here. Oh, I see. I'm really bad at math. I want to say I've been here 2019. So 2019, and then I've been in the Philippines, in Seattle since 2014
Okay.
through 2000. So that's 8 years in Seattle, I think.
5.
Five,
5.
five. Yeah.
And
Wait.
next year will be your 5th year here.
5
No, I
here.
think I'm so sorry. That's more than. So 2000. Let's just say I spent more time in Seattle, and then probably 5 years here in Florida. In Florida. So, but yeah.
How's everyone spending their holidays this year?
Relaxing it up.
Relaxing it
Definitely.
up.
Oh yeah.
Are you staying here, Tristan? I
Yeah.
mean, Justin.
Oh.
Yeah, as Terry said, that I'm gonna be spending my holidays here. Last year I had the opportunity to go back home, but it is costly, kind of traveling during the holidays back and forth to Seattle. So, this year I'll be here, with roommates and friends, and we are gonna live it up with a Filipino style dinner. Noche Buena is what it's called. It's a traditional called. I'm grateful to be with Filipinos, so I'm able to really express my tradition. Even though I'm not with my actual family, I'm still able to rely on my family of heart, like you said.
Other than Noche Bueno being a meal on Christmas Eve, anything specific about that meal?
No, I think it's just. I mean, like you have your traditionals like the pancet, lumpia. We're gonna have some lechon, and we're probably gonna be ordering Jollibee. I don't know if y'all heard of Jollibee in Orlando. It's a Filipino franchise of East Colonial. Totally try it. So we'll have some Jollibee, Filipino fruit salad, and some leche flan. So yeah, super super excited. The one main thing that's missing in a Noche Buena, you cannot have a Noche Buena, would be a whole roasted pig,
Uh,
called lechon. But that's a bit expensive, and like a whole pig. So, but that's the only thing missing.
and what about you, Gabby?
I'll just be doing a traditional Christmas, English Christmas meal with my kids, and that will be on Christmas Day here in Florida, Florida style.
Mhm.
What about your kids? How have what culture have you been able to pass both your Italian and English side on to them, or how's that gone?
Yeah. My son, who's 16, actually just this year taught himself how to speak Italian. So that
Oh.
was quite interesting. Yeah. And he speaks with my dad, his grandfather, practically every day.
Oh wow.
It's really helped him to pick up the language. Yeah, and he loves visiting there. He's, you know, for years we've been going, so he has really fond memories of that, and he's planning to go this summer. He'd like to spend the whole summer there, and that way he can really grasp the language. But yeah,
Sure.
and culture. Yeah.
Gaby, you mentioned I think it was Yorkshire pudding. So is that something that you make?
Yes, very easy. It's basically pancake mix.
Oh.
You're not supposed to tell us that.
Egg, flour, milk, water. That's it. Very, very easy. So yeah, Yorkshire pudding will definitely be having
What
that.
makes it puff up like that?
It's the way that you cook it. So you get the oil really, really hot in like cupcake tins. And then when you pour it in, what happens is the outside cooks quite quickly, and then the inside cooks a little bit slower, and that kind of gives you the shape. But yeah.
Okay.
And what about you, Terry? Do you have any Alaskan traditions that you have?
You're from Alaska?
That's where I grew up. Yes.
Oh, I just went on a trip to Alaska like a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, the whole deal.
Oh,
Glacier
wow.
National Park.
You were hardly in Alaska.
That's what people say.
You're just in a little dribble of Alaska down there. Well, a friend invited me to write something, and I did just write about Christmas lights. How my bedroom on the second floor of our house, which is in the woods on top of a hill overlooking the town, I had this vertical window that went nearly to the floor in the ceiling, skinny, but in bed I could look out and see the lights of the town down below. And I could also look the other way, about 7 miles away, a bigger town, and see some of those lights. But in addition to that, our bare trees would reflect the lights from the house. So my dad had made a big star. We had yellow lights on top of the roof, which you could actually see from the town down below, but it would cast that golden glow on the trees, as well as we had color lights along the roof line. And so in addition to that, often we would get a hoarfrost, which is a frosty sprinkling that covers the trees and everything, makes it crystalline and sparkly. And so in the inky darkness of Alaskan night, the lights would be shining and sparkling in the colors out in the trees to look out. And in the morning when we get up, no matter how early or how late, it would still be dark because it's Alaska and the sun is still under its covers. And so we would just turn on the lights of the Christmas tree and open our presents under those colored lights. And eventually, late in the morning, that sun would start peeking up and kind of crawling around the edge of the horizon, but casting a really golden light that I have seen nowhere else, that just goes along. And eventually it might pop its way all the way out of its bed and be a full view for just a few hours before it sinks down and pulls that cover of the earth over it again. So the lights of Christmas are something that are a memory and a touch point for me.
Your description was so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I know. I was getting really into that. Where in Alaska did you grow up?
I was thinking about Soldotna, and I also lived in Seward. They're both on the Kenai Peninsula, which is south of Anchorage.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But on the main part of Alaska, not that
right.
little dribbly.
Not the southeast region that nobody really considers. I'll tell you what, even that little bit, I was on a cruise, but I had a balcony, and every morning when I walked out in that balcony, it was just the most incredible sights you've ever seen in your life, honestly. Being a Floridian, I was in awe every day, every morning, and every sunset. I was just like, you can take a picture and that could be your wallpaper.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Interesting. Well, thanks everyone for coming. I wish everyone a wonderful holiday season, and look forward to seeing our audience next in January, 3rd Monday of the month, for our next screening. We'll have the winner of the audience award and our 3rd place winner. So thank you all for showing up and your generosity of sharing your story with us, and God bless us one and all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Bye, everybody. Thank
Bye.
you.